The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
While you're here, go ahead and sub up. Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Today we find out what's new in Kansas City. So we'll be talking about Kansas City Chiefs football today, and there is a plethora of changes in Kansas City, all of them well needed. This was a franchise in desperate need of change. They got it, and they got plenty of it. We'll talk about all of the changes in Kansas City here in a second. But before I forget, if you want your team or any team for that matter to be next here in the What's New In segment, simply be the first to leave a comment at the bottom of this video stating next and the team you would like to see next. So let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs and what's new in Kansas City. But before you can get to what's new, you got to get rid of the old. And so we'll go out with the old in Kansas City. And by the way, before I forget, a little bit more house cleaning to do. This was via YouTube subscriber Julian Muganda. He got the Chiefs up, so let's go out with the old with the Kansas City Chiefs. Customary procedure here in the lab room. I need the assistance of not only my big board behind me, but of course, my handy dandy pointer. I've got both present. Let's get to the board and start talking Kansas City Chiefs football. We start with the out with the old in Kansas City. And there's been a tough stretch of football in Kansas City. You get rid of good old Carl Peterson after a long tenure in Kansas City. You bring in Scott Pioli as the next man in line to take over, and you're thinking, hey, this guy has come from the Patriots lineage. He has what it takes to get it done. He's going to be the savior of this franchise. He comes in, makes a slew of moves. They don't work out. He brings in Todd Haley. Doesn't work. Lets Romeo Crennel take over. Doesn't work. And so Scott Pioli really had this franchise going in the wrong direction. Now, is it all his fault? No, not all of this can be pinned on Scott Pioli, but a large percentage of it definitely could fall right in his lap as blame for the demise of the Kansas City Chiefs as of the last 5 seasons or so. So you look at Scott Pioli and what he was able to do, and you just want to wipe that slate clean and start anew. Start over fresh, and that's what the Chiefs are looking to do. Scott Pioli, no longer your general manager. You look at head coach Romeo Crennel. I love Romeo Crennel. I really do. I love Romeo Crennel as a defensive coordinator in this league. What I don't like is Romeo Crennel as a head coach. I've seen this movie. I know how it ends, and it ends the same way every time. And even though Romeo Crennel is a great man, and he did a lot for this franchise as a head coach, as a stabilizer, a lot of things happened in Kansas City in 2012, some things you would like to forget. And he was a guy that was a rock, a stabilizing force for this franchise. But on the field, Romeo Crennel just didn't get it. There were times where he was just simply lost as a head coach. And it can't happen. Romeo Crennel, not a leader of men per se, but he is a great defensive mind. He will land on his feet somewhere in the league. He can coach up defenses. He can't coach 53 guys on one given roster. He just can't do it. He's no longer your head coach. And I've said this before. I'll say it again. It's like a domino effect. You get rid of the GM, and it just all falls down. You knock down that first domino, and that's the GM. Normally, not all the time. It's not always the situation. But 95% of the time, you knock down that GM domino, and so goes the head coach domino, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, all the way down till you run through the whole gamut of coaches. They're all wiped clean, and you start over. So this is what happened to defensive coordinator Gary Gibbs and offensive coordinator Brian Daboll. You look at defensive coordinator Gary Gibbs, and he was elevated to defensive coordinator about mid-season. Romeo Crennel was feeling the pressure, the heat of calling the plays on the defensive side of the football and still trying to manage this team, which he didn't do a very good job of. And so he said, I'm going to turn over the defensive play calling duties and not just focus in on the defense. I think one of the comments that really led everyone to realize that Romeo Crennel wasn't paying attention to the whole team, but just more so the defense, was when a reporter asked him after the game, why did your star running back, your best player, Jamal Charles, only touched the football 7 times? And I don't know the exact number, but let's just go with 7. And Romeo Crennel looked with a blank stare that only a person without a clue could give and said, I didn't know he only had 7 carries. I don't know. I don't know. And that can't happen. As a head coach, you have to know what's going on in all areas of your football team. So Gary Gibbs, your linebacker coach, was promoted to defensive coordinator in the middle of the season. Didn't make a difference. It didn't matter. Romeo Crennel was going to be fired, and so was his whole staff. And so Gary Gibbs is no longer on your coaching staff. You look at offensive coordinator Brian Daboll, and he came in as the offensive coordinator from the Miami Dolphins. And look, you can't put all of the blame on Brian Daboll. This offense lacked a lot of oomph. And whether it was injuries or guys just not playing to their maximum potential, or it was just Matt Castle turning the football over again, it didn't matter. Brian Daboll was not going to be successful in 2012, so he's no longer on your coaching staff as well. You look at quarterback Matt Castle. I never liked Matt Castle as a starter in this league. And even when he had that season, when he threw about 20 or 27 touchdowns and only 7 INTs, you went to the postseason, you won the division, I wasn't sold on Matt Castle. Ever. Not even when he was in New England. I thought he was a product of his environment. Then I thought he took the league by storm in Kansas City, had a very efficient season. Nothing wrong with that. He's a game manager. There's nothing wrong with being a game manager. But when you step outside of that comfort zone and try to make plays, that's when you get exposed. And I thought that Matt Castle was exposed in 2012, 2011. I just thought that he hasn't played up to what the Chiefs thought he was going to be after he came in and helped them win the division in 2010. And so Matt Castle, for me, is a guy that's a career backup. He's someone that should be a career backup. A backup on your football team, have no problems with Matt Castle assuming that role. But as a starter, I have a problem with it. Matt Castle no longer on your football team, and you should be happy about that because Matt Castle isn't the guy to lead you where you want to go as a Kansas City Chiefs fan. You look at quarterback Brady Quinn, same boat. Backup quarterback only. Brady Quinn has never, I repeat, never been a good quarterback in this league. I thought he was overhyped in college at Notre Dame, and he came into the league with a lot of confidence, borderline cockiness. He wasn't drafted where he wanted to. He was very nonchalant about not being picked. He had an attitude about him when he came into this league, and he's never been a good quarterback in this league. And so he's moved on. You shouldn't worry about Brady Quinn not being on your football team. Just like you shouldn't worry about Matt Castle not being on your football team. Both of these quarterbacks aren't winners. You don't need them. You look at running back Peyton Hillis. You thought you had a two-headed monster that could take you into the future. You get Peyton Hillis. You already got Jamal Charles. It's supposed to be the reincarnation of thunder and lightning in Kansas City. One's a speed scat back that can take it the distance. The other is a bruising back that can run over defenders and put the football in the end zone. Problem is, this guy had more fumbles than he did offensive rushing touchdowns for you in 2012. Just not a really good productive season for running back Peyton Hillis. And I thought that he started to come on at the end of the season. He started to play some of his best football toward the end of the season, but damage had already been done. This guy averaged 3.6 yards a carry. He wasn't efficient when given the football. I wasn't a big Peyton Hillis fan. I thought he did too much talking and not enough playing on the football field in 2012. And so Peyton Hillis no longer on your football team. And again, I think you have a really good stable of backs You brought in some more backs that I really, truly like. And I think guys like Cyrus Gray are going to step up. I am a big Niall Davis fan. And so forget about Peyton Hillis. He's no longer on your roster. You won't miss him. Trust me. Wide receiver, Steve Breston. I remember when Steve was playing some good football, when you got him in 2011, you thought, man, we got ourselves a steal from the Arizona Cardinals. Steve came in, played really good, and you thought, man, the sky's the limit for this guy. We got Bo, we got Breston. If we can get anything out of Baldwin, we got the 3 Bs. Then all of a sudden, you find out Steve's got something wrong with those knees. We're not sure what it is, but Steve's got something going on. Steve only plays in 4 games. He's not productive. Next thing you know, Steve is off of your football team. What a shame, because it started out so beautifully. It really did, but it ended tragically. No more Steve Breston on your roster. You look at tight end Kevin Boss. He's not the boss, but he's a solid football player, solid tight end. Problem with Kevin Boss is he doesn't stay healthy. When he was in New York with the Giants, he played really well. He got injured, but he played football. He moved on to Oakland. He was injured. He moved on to Kansas City. He was injured. And so he's no longer on your football team because he can't stay healthy. End of the discussion. You look at tight end Steve Maneri. Blocking tight end. Every team needs one. You got to have a guy that can block. Maybe he doesn't catch the football all that well. Doesn't matter. That's not his job. Just block. And that's what Steve Maneri did. He's a big 6'6", 6'7", tight end, 270 pound blocking tight end. He's now in Chicago. You'll find another blocking tight end. There are a dime a dozen in this league, but everyone needs a blocking tight end. You had one. Now he's gone. Find a new one. You look at offensive tackle Eric Winston. Seems like no one wants to keep this guy around anymore. He was in Houston playing really good football. Surprisingly, he was cut. Their loss is your gain. You get Eric Winston. You feel like, hey, we got us a solid right tackle that can man up that position for the next 3, 4, maybe even 5 seasons. All of a sudden, Eric Winston is cut from your team as well. And so now he's looking for work again. He was solid, wasn't a game changer per se, but he was solid. Could have hung on to him, chose not to. Oh well, you move on. You have plenty of tackles on this roster, especially after the #1 overall selection that you made in Eric Fisher. You have 2 tackles now, and you don't need a guy like Eric Winston making a lot of money on your roster, so you move on from him. And you look at offensive guard / center, Ryan Lilja. He played a lot of center for you. Solid in the interior of that line. Once again, there are a lot of pieces on this line that are really solid for the Kansas City Chiefs. I thought Ryan Lilja was one of them. However, he's a guy that is expendable. You can move on from him. He's getting up there in age. You can find a younger, better center in the middle of your offensive line. And so Ryan Lilja no longer on your football team. You look at defensive back Travis Daniels. Never started a game in the National Football League. Solid corner that can play in the slot, can play out wide. But again, he's the guy that you want in your nickel, in your dime package. You don't want him starting out wide. He's a solid corner. But guess what? You can find a solid corner anywhere in this league. You can't find great ones anywhere, but you can find a solid corner anywhere. Travis Daniels no longer on your roster. You look at defensive back Javier Arenas. Traded him in the offseason to the Arizona Cardinals for the services of Cardinals fullback Anthony Sherman. And so you did a little flip-flop. No more Javier Arenas. Your new general manager, John Dorsey, is a guy that likes bigger corners. And Javier Arenas does not fit that bill at about 5'9". There's nothing big about Javier Arenas. So he was shipped off to Arizona. You get a piece back in a guy that you hope can pan out for you in Anthony Sherman, a fullback. You move on from there. You look at defensive back Abraham Elam. Here's a safety that started a boatload of games for you last season. Was solid. Again, not a difference maker on this defense, but a solid guy that started plenty of games for you in 2012. But you can find better safeties. This Kansas City Chiefs team last season had too many guys that were solid but not difference makers. You don't win in this league with solid players. You win in this league with exceptional players with solid guys around them. And so Abraham Elam is a solid safety, but in the grand scheme of things, you can do better than Abraham Elam on your football team. So you look at linebacker Brandon Seiler. I was never a Brandon Seiler fan. Not when he was in San Diego, not when he was in Kansas City. I'm not a big Brandon Seiler fan. I don't think he adds a lot of value to your football team. I think Brandon Seiler is a guy that has underachieved since he has gotten into the league, and I am not a big Brandon Seiler fan. He's no longer on your roster. You will not miss him. You look at defensive end Glenn Dorsey. Talk about disappointment. And he's not a bust. I've talked to Kansas City Chiefs fans, and they think he is a bust. No, a bust is a guy that is out of the league by now. A bust is a guy that has done absolutely nothing for you. Glenn Dorsey has performed, just not at the level that you expected when you spend the 5th overall selection in the 2008 draft on him. So, yes, there is definitely disappointment there. You should be disappointed because you drafted this guy to change the game at the defensive line, at the defensive end position for you. You drafted him to come in, get pressure on the quarterback, as well as stop the run. He has done neither at an extremely high level. He has not gotten any pressure on the quarterback. We're talking about a guy that has been in the league 4 or 5 seasons, only 4 career sacks. So he's not getting to the quarterback. He's solid in the run game, but not a difference maker in the run game. He's not a brick wall in the run game. And so he's not what you thought he was. He isn't the guy that you drafted 5th overall and thought that he was going to change the game. He was a fraud, but it's okay. He's no longer on your football team. He's now in San Francisco. Not a bust, just disappointing, but he's no longer on your roster. You've wiped your hands clean of him. Time to move on. You look at defensive end, Ropati Patuatua. And this is a big, big man. At 6'8", 320 pounds, at the defensive end, defensive tackle position, wherever you want to put him, he's a big guy that's hard to move. The only problem with Ropati Patuatua is the fact that he is so big. It's a gift and a curse. When you're 6'8", you're staying straight up off the snap of the ball. Hard for you to keep that pad level down and stop those guards and tackles from getting underneath your pad level and driving you back. And so if there's one deficiency in his game, it's the fact that he's huge. And so linemen have an easy go of it getting underneath his pads and driving him and redirecting him out of the play. But this is a big man that can really get in the way and obstruct the view of quarterbacks. He can also get to the quarterback. He got you 2 sacks. At that height and that size, to get 2 sacks in this league is really a testament to how athletic this guy is. And so I thought he was a solid defender for you. But again, you can do better than just 2 sacks on the season. You can do better than a guy that at that height has trouble keeping that pad level down. The low man wins in the National Football League, and he's not going to be the low man on many occasions in this league. You look at defensive tackle Sean Smith. You got this guy in the middle of the season looking for him to add depth along your defensive line. This was his 2nd stint in Kansas City. You had him for about, I don't know, maybe 6-7 weeks in the season. Played solid, but again, not a guy that's going to change the game. And at his age, he's getting up there in age. He's in his 30s. He's past his prime. Sean Smith no longer on your roster. So that was a mouthful. That was a lot of movement for the Kansas City Chiefs. But when you're going to blow something up, that's what happens. And even though you blew this thing up and you're starting from the ground up, you got a head start because a lot of the bricks that fell down from the wreckage after you blew this thing up, you were able to salvage them and start with the base of your team. You were able to take those bricks and build the foundation of your team. So when you're a team with talent, which I think the Chiefs already had a season ago, when you blow up some stuff, you still got players left from the wreckage that you can use to help build for the future. And so you're not like a standard run-of-the-mill 2-14 team. You're not like a St. Louis Rams when they were 2-14, or a Jacksonville Jaguars when they're 2-14 team, where there isn't a talent base to build from. You've got players that are cornerstones of your franchise that you see as guys that you can build around. And so even though there are a lot of names on this list, there are a lot of players that are really good left on this football team. Now we'll talk about in with the new in Kansas City as you added a lot of very valuable pieces in this offseason? Okay, so now we go in with the new with the Kansas City Chiefs, and you got to start at the top. We started at the top with the old. Got to do the same thing in with the new. So you start at the top with GM John Dorsey. He's a close friend of Andy Reid's. He comes over from Green Bay, and he's a football guy. He just gets it. He understands what it takes to win in this league. And anytime you come from a franchise like the Green Bay Packers, you know something about winning. You know what it takes to build a winner. And so John Dorsey is a guy that you want in control of this franchise moving forward. And you've got a lot of good guys in that front office making decisions for your football team. He has a philosophy and he's going to stick to it. And let's hope, if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, that it benefits this team greatly in the near future. You look at head coach Andy Reid coming over from Philadelphia. I thought he was going to take a year off. I thought he was going to recharge the battery. No, Andy wanted none of it. He wanted to go right back into coaching, and he got the perfect opportunity in Kansas City. He had the pick of the litter. He could have probably went anywhere he wanted to, but he picked Kansas City for a reason, because there was talent already established in Kansas City. They just needed a few pieces here, a few pieces there. Number one, you needed a quarterback, and Andy understood that. You needed direction. That's something I thought you lacked in 2012. That's something I thought you lacked in 2011. Direction. Where do you want this team to go? How are we going to get there? Direction. Romeo Crennel doesn't give you that. Andy Reid does. And so you get the right coach in place. You put a couple of pieces where they need to be, fit them in the puzzle where they were missing. All of a sudden, this could be a dangerous football team. You look at offensive coordinator Doug Peterson. There's a guy coming over from Philadelphia with Andy Reid. He was a guy that was under Andy Reid as an understudy, is still somewhat in that process. Andy Reid has really taken a liking to Doug Peterson. Now he's getting a position of power for the first time in his career as an offensive coordinator. Now, he won't be calling the plays. That's still Andy Reid's job. But what he will do is be a little bit more intimate with the offense. He will be a part of the game planning for Sundays. And so he will have the title of offensive coordinator, even though he will not be calling the plays. He'll still be very intimate with what's going on with this offense. You look at defensive coordinator Bob Sutton. Now, this is his defense. Andy Reid specifically brought him in from the Jets because this guy has intimate knowledge of the 3-4 defense. Andy Reid, as we all know, ran the 4-3 defense in Philadelphia for a long time and was successful with it. But he wanted to continue to build off of what the Chiefs already had in their 3-4 defensive scheme. And so he didn't want to ruffle any feathers. He didn't want to blow that up. They had success with it. And so he wanted to keep that intact in place. He brought in Bob Sutton to continue on with this 3-4 defense in Kansas City. Bob Sutton is going to do that. He's going to be aggressive. As we know, the Jets were an aggressive defense, and part of the reason why was because of coaches like Bob Sutton, who will coach up this defense and hope to have this be a top 10, top 5 potential defense in this league. You look at quarterback Alex Smith, who you traded for in the offseason, swapped a second rounder with the San Francisco 49ers to get his services, and I thought it was a fabulous move. A lot of people like to call Alex Smith a lot of things, including a game manager. There's nothing wrong with managing the game of football. I don't know about you, but I can tell you this firsthand, and as a Kansas City Chiefs fan out there, you can probably say the same thing. After 2012, you respect game managers because Matt Castle was anything but a game manager. Matt Castle turned the football over entirely too much in 2012. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that turnovers in this league equal to losses. And so the one thing you get out of Alex Smith is someone that is a caretaker of the football. He won't turn it over. Will he take a lot of chances? Probably not. Is he going to have a high completion percentage? Absolutely, you betcha. Is he going to take a lot of deep shots? Probably not. Is he going to push the football down the field as much as you might like? Maybe. Maybe he won't. But I'll tell you one thing, he'll give you a shot to win football games. He won't turn it over. He won't make the critical mistake that cost you the game over and over and over again, like Matt Castle did for you in 2012. And so you're getting a guy that's going to come in, run this offense, run it confidently, and give you an opportunity every single Sunday to win. And as a football fan, that's all you want from your team is a chance to win every single week. And Alex Smith will give you that opportunity. I like this fit in Kansas City for Alex Smith. I think it was a great move. I think the Chiefs are in good hands with Alex Smith. You look at quarterback Chase Daniel. Here's a guy that you got from the New Orleans Saints, and you're hoping that he learned by osmosis. Because if he learned by osmosis, then he's a good quarterback just because he was around Drew Brees. And he's shown flashes in the preseason. However, the preseason is the preseason. And so even though you kind of see that this guy gets it as a shorter quarterback in this league, you still got to see it in live action with live bullets flying past your head. Pew, pew, pew. You still haven't seen that from Chase Daniel. And until you do, you still don't know what you have. He's the great unknown. But guess what? Everyone's favorite guy in town is always the backup quarterback. So he'll definitely be on the tip of a lot of people's tongue if Alex Smith isn't getting it done. But I don't think it will come to that because Alex Smith is a solid NFL quarterback. You look at fullback Anthony Sherman. He's got his work cut out for him. Even though you traded for him, you've got several other guys on this roster that are going to be fullbacks competing for the starting nod at fullback. And most teams don't keep more than one fullback. So he's got his work cut out for him because he wasn't that great of a fullback in Arizona. He was solid, not great. You drafted a fullback. You got another one that you acquired from the Atlanta Falcons as well. And so there are a lot of guys looking to win that fullback job. I don't know if Anthony Sherman is going to be the guy or not, but you got him in the trade. Let's see what Anthony Sherman can bring to the table. Wide receiver Marty Gilliard is a guy that flamed out of St. Louis, was given a shot in Philadelphia, didn't work there either, and he really hasn't had a chance in this league. Coming out of Cincinnati, highly productive, solid football player. You think that if he's put in the right system, given the opportunity, he can do some things and help a football team. He's going to get that opportunity in Kansas City. Let's see what he does with it because he's running out of chances in this league. You look at wide receiver Donnie Avery. Love this pickup. Love it. Because Donnie Avery is a guy that has resurrected his career. Much like Marty Gilliard, he was in St. Louis, drafted by St. Louis, given the title of number one receiver, got hurt, wasn't the same in St. Louis. They let him go. He goes to Tennessee, doesn't do anything there, and it looks like his career is kind of on the rocks. He's salvaged by the Indianapolis Colts, goes out and has a stellar year in 2012. Now he's getting an opportunity to play a pivotal role on this Kansas City Chiefs team. Look for this guy to be in your slot and make some plays. I think Donnie Avery fits in very well in that same position Steve Bruston was in 2011 when he had a really good season for you. He's going to come in, be between those two big receivers on the outside, and he's going to be allowed to do damage in the slot. I like Donnie Avery a lot, and I think if he can continue to resurrect his career, you've got yourself a really good piece in Donnie Avery. You look at tight end Anthony Fasano, got him from the Dolphins, blocking tight end. Remember I talked about you getting rid of Steve Maneri? Here's a guy that's going to replace him, and guess what? Anthony Fasano can actually catch the football. So you get a double whammy. You get all the things you're looking for in a tight end rolled up into one package in Anthony Fasano. Now look, he's not Tony Gonzalez. He's not going to create separation. Let Tony Moriarty do that. He's not creating separation. He's not running by any safeties. He's not going to run by any linebackers. But what he will do is post up, use his frame, catch the football when it's thrown to him. He'll block his tail off in the run game. He'll do all the intangibles necessary, and he's a target in the red zone. You'll love Anthony Fasano and everything he brings to the table. It's a great move by the Chiefs bringing in a guy like Anthony Fasano to play the tight end position. Great pickup by the Kansas City Chiefs. You look at offensive lineman Jeff Schwartz, and here's a guy that nobody's talking about. He has the ability, though, to come in and help this offensive line. He was a really good player for the Carolina Panthers, where he was drafted at the tackle position. Gets injured, lands in Minnesota, has a chance to battle for a guard position, gets a sports hernia injury, is beat out by Brandon Fusco, and doesn't play in Minnesota either. Now he's in Kansas City. Clean bill of health and a new opportunity, a new lease on life. Now I think Jeff Schwartz is ready to contribute to a football team. If you're the Chiefs, you got to give this guy a lot of attention and see if he can help you on your offensive line. You look at defensive back Sean Smith. I was absolutely enamored with this guy. And truth be told, as a Redskins fan, I wanted this guy signed in Washington in the worst way. There aren't a lot of 6'3" corners walking around in this league. And the Dolphins fans were very spoiled, and they didn't know what they had. And I think what Dolphins fans were doing was they saw Sean Smith every day, and they saw what he could be, and they were disappointed when he didn't live up to the expectations all the time. But I see the potential. I see him getting better. I see the confidence. I see everything that you look for in an elite corner. And you never know what you've got till it's gone. And you don't miss something until it's no longer there. I think the Dolphins are going to regret this one. And I think the Chiefs have really done themselves some good here, getting a young, budding star at the cornerback position, in my estimation, in Sean Smith. You look at Donta Robinson. Here's a guy that I think he's past his prime. And he's had a lot of concussions. He plays very recklessly. He throws his body around. He's very aggressive as a corner. I love that about Donta Robinson. We'll see if he can still cover and help this Chiefs team in that capacity. But I know there's one thing that Donta Robinson isn't afraid to do, and that's tackle, throw his body around. That's where the concussions come from. He's got to stay clear of that. Those 15-yard penalties don't help your football team, and those concussions don't help you as a football player. He has to steer clear of that. If he can, this is a good asset to the Kansas City Chiefs. You look at safety Quentin Demps. Here's a guy you get from the Texans. Solid safety, not going to knock your socks off, just solid. He isn't a guy that makes plays on the football. He tackles relatively well, but again, he's not a difference maker. He's just a solid rotational depth safety. And why this move was made is simply because Andy Reid is familiar with this guy. He drafted him in Philadelphia. He was on his roster for a few years in Philadelphia. Reid is very comfortable with him. He brought him along for the ride in Kansas City. You look at linebacker Frank Zombo. Here's a guy that started in the Super Bowl just 3 seasons ago with the Green Bay Packers. How long ago that seems, though, as he has now been relegated to essentially a special teams player. Here's a guy that's played meaningful snaps in this league. I think he can help you, not only on special teams, but in a pinch, he can come in and play some solid linebacker on first and second down. You don't want this guy out there on third down when you're in passing situations. That's not his strength. You stick him in the game, allow him to help you stop the run, he can do that. And so in a pinch, Frank Zombo can help you stopping the run, and he also is going to help you on special teams. You look at linebacker Zach Diles. Not a big Zach Diles fan. He played a lot of good football for the Houston Texans, however. He can still play and help someone in the National Football League. I just don't know with the kind of depth you already have at linebacker if this is a necessity here. I don't know if this is a guy that really helps you because I don't think he brings anything to the table that you don't already have on your football team. And so I have questions about Zach Diles and his ability to get it done anymore. Started out his career in Houston starting just about every week. And then his play weaned. It didn't wean. It fell off of the earth. It fell off of the map. It's not even on the radar anymore. He's not playing meaningful snaps. And so there's something there that teams around the league figured out about this guy. It allowed him to be exposed, and I don't know if he's going to help this Chiefs team or not. We'll see. You never know in this league. Guys figure it out. They get better. They make adjustments. Maybe Zach Diles can do that and help this Kansas City Chiefs team at the linebacker position. Akeem Jordan is a guy that I definitely don't like. I'd much rather have Zach Diles than Akeem Jordan. I think Akeem Jordan is a guy that is very light. He's not physical. He's someone that gets lost in space, and he's very athletic. So you think that the athletic ability would trump all of that other stuff, but it doesn't. He gets lost in space. He's not physical at the point of attack. He's a guy that's coming over from Philadelphia with Andy Reid. Andy Reid is very familiar with Akeem Jordan. He was with him in Philadelphia. Again, much like Quentin Demps, he's a guy that he brought along with the ride. I'm comfortable with him. I know what he can do. He's okay in my book, but he's not okay in my book. But my opinion doesn't count. Andy's does. He's on the football team. You look at defensive end Austin Lane. Here's a guy coming over from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Solid rotational depth defensive end. I think he's a guy that can stand up at the point of attack in this 3-4 defense, can play some 5 technique for you. Is he going to get pressure on the quarterback? Probably not. Occasionally he can, but I think he'll be a solid rotational depth guy. He isn't the strongest at the point of attack, but he can hold his own out at the edge. He won't set that edge as much as you would like him to, but you're not asking him to play 45 to 50 snaps. You're going to ask him to play 20 to 25 snaps. And in limited duty, Austin Lane is going to be perfectly fine. You look at defensive end, Mike DeVito. This is, to me, one of the bigger free agent acquisitions of your offseason. Nobody's talking about it. And a lot of times, guys like him don't get talked about. But Mike DeVito is one of those linchpin type of guys on a defensive line. He's one of the guys that does his job and does it so well that it allows others around him to flourish. He's not getting pressure on the quarterback. Don't look for Mike DeVito to do that. But he's one of the best in the business at stopping the run. I say running a football straight at Mike DeVito is insane, because insanity is defined as doing the same thing over and over again without success. It's like banging your head against a brick wall repeatedly. Why? Same way I feel about running at Mike DeVito. Why? There's other places you could go and have success, just not at Mike DeVito. So this is a huge pickup for the Chiefs. It's going to help your run defense in ways you can't even imagine. This is a guy that I feel like the Jets really wanted to hold on to. This was one of Rex Ryan's favorite guys, and for good reason, because Mike DeVito brings it on every play. You're really going to benefit from a guy like Mike DeVito being on your football team. And so that's the end with the new portion of your free agent acquisitions and trades. Now let's talk about your draft picks. We start with, and before I go any further, if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of each and every single one of these players in the draft of the Kansas City Chiefs, look for the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. I did one on every single team, including the Chiefs. I broke down each and every one of these players, talked about what they can bring to this Chiefs team. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown, go to the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. Offensive tackle Eric Fisher in the first round. Tight end Travis Kelce out of Cincinnati in the third round. Running back Nile Davis, one of my personal favorites, out of Arkansas in the third round. Linebacker Nico Johnson in the fourth round. Cornerback Sanders Cummings in the fifth round. Center Eric Kush in the sixth round. Fullback Braden Wilson, one of those guys that Anthony Sherman is going to have to compete with in the sixth round. And defensive end Mike Catapano in the seventh round. So we go from guys who have a legit shot or who are shoo-ins to make this roster in draft picks to guys who are fighting for their NFL lives in undrafted free agent rookies. So as we look at this list of undrafted free agents, we start with quarterback Tyler Bray out of Tennessee, running back Tobin Opram out of Kansas, running back Jordan Roberts out of Charleston by way of West Virginia, wide receiver Frankie Hammond out of Florida, wide receiver Rico Richardson out of Jackson State, tight end Demetrius Harris out of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, offensive lineman A.J. Hawkins out of Mississippi, offensive lineman Colin Kelly out of Oregon State, safety Bradley McDougald out of Kansas, cornerback Malcolm Bronson out of McNeese State, cornerback Otha Foster out of Western Alabama, cornerback Greg Castillo out of Iowa, linebacker Josh Martin out of Columbia, linebacker Ridge Wilson out of West Alabama, linebacker Darren Drakeford out of Maryland, defensive end Brad Madison out of Missouri, defensive end Rob Lohr out of Vanderbilt rounds out your group. 17 undrafted free agent rookies in all. and each and every single one of them have a shot to crack this roster. Now, I only expect 2 or 3 at most to make this roster, but you just never know. When you get a new head coach and you get turnover on a roster, you get guys that are surprises that make the roster who weren't drafted. And so there are some guys in this group that have a legitimate shot of cracking this roster. Who are those guys and how many of them will there be? I can't say, but we will see how these undrafted free agent rookies fare with this Kansas City Chiefs team in 2013. Now you go from in with the new to any philosophical changes in Kansas City. So you look at the Kansas City Chiefs and their philosophical changes in 2013. You start on the offensive side of the football, and you look at what the Chiefs were a season ago. There was no direction on this football team, and I thought that Jamal Charles was the focal point of the offense, as he should be. Dwayne Bowe did his thing, but you need more out of John Baldwin. I think this is the year he has to step up, and I didn't think he did that in 2012. And so fast forwarding to 2013, I expect Andy Reid to come in. I hope, and as a Chiefs fan, you probably have to hope as well, that he does not come in and take the football out of Jamal Charles's hands, because you've seen his track record in Philadelphia. He's had dominant backs that could run and catch it out of the backfield in Westbrook and later on in McCoy, and he just simply did not give those guys the football enough. And so if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, Jamal Charles is your thoroughbred. He is your meal ticket. Wherever you're trying to go, Jamal Charles is the fastest way for you to get there. And so he has to understand first and foremost, does Andy Reid, that passing game, that short passing game, being an extension of the running game, can't occur. And I know Andy Reid is through and through a West Coast offensive head coach. That's what he's always been. That's how he was brought up in this league. That's all he knows. And so, yes, you are going to throw the football a lot, but I expect you guys to run the football still. He cannot abandon the best player on his football team in Jamal Charles. He cannot do it. You have to run the football and run it effectively. And I feel like you have a stable of backs that will allow you to do just that. You have to throw the football. Alex Smith is going to take care of the football. He's going to complete a high percentage of his throws. A lot of them are going to be intermediate throws, anywhere from 0 to 10, maybe 15 yards down the field, but you won't get a lot of deep shots. You'll get some shots here and there. I'm not saying that Alex Smith is a dink and dunk quarterback exclusively. He can throw it down the field. He will push it down the field at times, but for the most part, your offense is going to consist of a very precise passing game led by Alex Smith. Dwayne Bowe needs to be featured out wide, and he will. You have guys that can do some things in the slot, and I like Devon Wiley. I'm looking for him to progress, and I think he can help you somewhat in 2013, a guy that hasn't really done a lot since being drafted out of Fresno State. I like Devon Wiley a lot. I'm looking for big things out of him, as well as a guy that you got in free agency in Donnie Avery. I expect him to be able to help you as well. So there are weapons on this team. I expect this offense to be much, much better under Andy Reid. You flip it over to the defensive side of football, where you were stocked and loaded with Pro Bowlers a season ago. There are a lot of talented guys on this roster. You talk about Tamba Hali, you look at Justin Houston, you look at cornerback Brandon Flowers, you look at safety Eric Berry, the list goes on and on and on. And so there are a lot of talented football players on this team. And so if you are the Kansas City Chiefs, you're looking to add to what you already had by adding guys like Sean Smith, guys like Donta Robinson to this defense. A guy like Mike DeVito comes in and helps you along that defensive line. You are going to be a better team because your defense is going to be that much better. And I thought the defense was solid a season ago. You weren't 2-14 because your defense wasn't getting it done. You were 2-14 because the offense couldn't stop throwing up all over themselves and turning over the football, mainly Matt Castle at the quarterback position. So, and yes, Jamal Charles had a fumbling problem as well. He has to nick that and get rid of that problem and kind of put to rest the notion that he's a guy that's going to fumble the football. If you poke at it, he has to take care of the ball. That could be one of the reasons why he isn't featured in Kansas City as much as he should if he's fumbling the football, has to take care of it. But defensively, this is a team that I think can really make some headway in the AFC West. This isn't a powerhouse division stocked and chocked and full of a lot of explosive offenses. You look at the Denver Broncos, that's a team that is explosive on offense. You look at San Diego, they have the potential to be, but they're not an explosive offense. You look at the Raiders, far from it. So this is a team that can dominate in this AFC West division if they come in, pick up this system that they're going to have to learn, and they're still going to be in a base 3-4 defense. But your new defensive coordinator, Bob Sutton, is going to come in and he's going to implement some of the things he likes to do, some of the things they ran in New York with the Jets. And so if you're the Kansas City Chiefs and you're a fan of the Chiefs, you're looking for this defense to first and foremost stop the run. Anytime you're looking to make any headway in this league, you got to stop the run. Points are scored in the passing game, but games are won a lot of times running the football. Actually, Atlanta Falcons, if they could run the football, they would have been in the Super Bowl a season ago. And so if you can stop the other team from running the football, you make them one-dimensional. And once they are one-dimensional, you got them right where you want them. Then you can turn Justin Houston loose. You can turn Tamba Hali loose, force the team into mistakes. And then you got guys like Sean Smith, Donta Robinson, Eric Berry in that secondary that will be ready to pounce on those mistakes. So I think the Chiefs are in a very good position. I like the Chiefs. I liked them a lot last year. I like them even better this season. I'm not here to prognosticate their schedule. I will do that at a later date and time. But I will say this. This Kansas City Chiefs team is a sleeper that I think is going to wake up a lot of teams around this league. And I really like all of the moves made in this offseason from top to bottom for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think this is going to be a scary football team in 2013. And those are your philosophical changes for the Kansas City Chiefs. And that is what is new in Kansas City.
Like the content? Want more? Sub up.